and universities. Ma'am has got a grant for a major research project from the Indian Council of Social Science Research in the capacity of co-project investigator. We are truly honored to have her here, and we eagerly anticipate inspiring words. Please, ma'am, now this platform is yours.
Yeah, I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So, so thank you, Dr. Archana, for giving a very beautiful introduction about myself. The topic which is given to me is that is related to the selective reporting and misrepresentation of data. So I start with a very generalized topic as the FDP, that about the research ethics, right? So I can start with a general question so that make it more interactive, because we all are into the research firm for last someone has started, or maybe someone has into maybe 1 year, 6 months, or more than that. Like when we start our graduation or post-graduation, we normally have came across certain terminology related to the research related to ethics. And when it comes to the research ethics, then it has to be more particular about how we are writing, how we are publishing, and so on and so forth. So to start with, when I talk about the research ethics, so yeah, I can put up the general question to all of you, like what do you understand by research ethics, or are you really ethical in doing the research? Right. So you can write it on the chat box. If you want to speak, you can speak. If you are allowed to speak, yeah, it's okay. Otherwise, you can write it on the chat box. I just want your views and your understanding about the research ethics. So maybe whatever comes in your mind related to the research ethics, just write it on the chat box. Okay, free from plagiarism. Okay, Ashish, Dr. Ashish says that it is free from plagiarism. Okay.
Hello, Hanji ma'am.
Yeah. So I think Miss Jyoti says that, Rana Jyoti says that, to getting something new with the previous work and getting the answer of some resolved question, code of conduct. Then there's another understanding of research ethics is the research which is done sincerely. Okay. Okay, I think somebody want to speak out also. Guidelines for a responsible code of conduct. Okay. New knowledge about the previous knowledge. Honesty. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Strive for honesty in all the scientific communication, use of research and research outputs. Okay. Use of resources. Okay, means the citation. Okay. Guidelines for responsible code of conduct, or a code of conduct for research, free of falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. Okay. Research should be your original work free from plagiarism. Yes. Okay, so we got a clear understanding or a broad understanding about the things which concern for what is the morally good or bad. Okay, so when we talk about the research ethics, it is not only like say when we talk about the ethics, it is normally or generally focus on the plagiarism free. Right. So it seems to be when it is a plagiarism free, it means that it is your own work, right? So why the organization want it to be plagiarism free? Because it should not be copied directly from the others, right? So that is one of the test. Basically, you can say that can be one of the test where to authenticate that your work is your work is written by you and it is not being directly taken by somebody else. So we most of the journal says that it has to be 9% or 5%. So if it is we normally followed, we reframe the sentences. It tells about a certain rules that is followed by it's our research work. So right. So when we talk about the research ethics, we look for the plagiarism, and plagiarism is one of the check that has to be considered for that is considered to be your own work. So when we take say that the new idea is being developed or something new which is my own work that has been developed, so that is my own, that can have different measures of checks, and one measure of check can be the plagiarism, right? So if it is not directly, the sentence is directly not copied from, so it seems to be that it is my own work. So when you start writing the research paper, right? So I start with a very basic because my topic is somewhat related to what all we are doing, and that is somewhat basics to what research we are doing. So when if I think all of you have written the first paper, right? So if you what the rules or what are the steps that can be followed when you are writing a research paper, right? So I just have a general question, like say when you want to, like say supposingly if I say that we have to write a paper, write a research paper, so how you approach it, that is again very, very important, and that is the aspect that to start with the research ethics, because how you are going to approach certain things and take it forward, that is where the research ethics somewhat started. And like say when I say that you have to write let's take a certain topic where you have a, like say technology adoption in HR practices, right? So if there is a topic called HR, there is a topic called technology adoption in best HR practices. Right. So I hope everybody has written the first paper of there, and if there is something a new paper which I want you to be write upon, and it says that technology adoption on best HR practices. So how you are going to start with? I just want to take the understanding about how you can how one can start with the paper, which may be a research paper. So, like say, if you can, I think you have the right to speak, right? So, if you want to speak upon, if you want to write on the this thing, if you want to write something on the chat box, you can do that, and then I can take it forward. Like what all you have to take care while writing the first research paper or writing the research paper. Okay, it tells about the rules that can be followed about the research. There is no, okay. So we had finished with the first question, that is something related to what are research ethics. Now we had started with another question. I had given you the topic technology adoption on best HR practices. That is the topic I had given to you, and we either you can take the some sort of title, and then you can start about how you can write or how you can thought of start with the research paper writing. Same here. Okay, madam, I didn't. Okay, that's fine. Riddhi says that she has not written any research paper. Okay, no issues, no problem. Nidhi also has not written any research paper. So yeah, if somebody want to share how you can start, otherwise I will tell you the basic steps how to start with the research paper, and that will be concerning all the ethics. Please guide me. Okay, okay, no issues, Riddhi. I will tell you the steps for writing a research paper. Now, is there anything you want to share? What are the steps they follow for writing a research paper? Yeah, I think it is written as BMU. Who has raised his hands? Who has raised his hand? You want to share something? Okay, I think Renu says that, okay, guide me. Okay, Seema says that guide me. Okay, no issues. So we will be, I will be taking all the research practices, research ethics practices to start with how to write a research paper. So how I normally go about writing a research paper is I don't force, okay, we start with finding out the topic and then the literature review. Okay. Neha says that we will start finding out the topic and try to find out some research paper. Please tell me how to prepare a research paper. Okay, fair enough. No issues. I will tell you how to go about the research paper writing. So when I start with the research paper writing, the first and the foremost thing is don't force any student to select or to force any topic to them, right? That is the first criteria. So when the students are coming for maybe for the PhD, normally it happens that there can be the consequences where the research topic is taken by the students, and there can be a case where where the supervisor help the student to take the research topic. So there can be the two ways where you can take the research title or a research topic. What I do with my students is I will ask the student to, yes, obviously. Jyoti Rana says that telling the previous related work, write them in their own ideas of the study. So that can be the different ways where you can go about for finding out the title and finding out the research paper. So there should be some broader area which has to be identified by the researchers while discussing about the topic. Like in my topic, which I have given is like, say, if my student want to do something on the technology adoption and the HR best practices, right? So there has to be a little focus upon, like say, in what area he or she want to do. So if he want to do on the HR best practices, that is one, and the technology adoption, because there are very frequent changes which is happening in the due to the technology adoption in every field. So it can be in the marketing operation, it can be in the digital marketing, it can be anything, right? So this area, this technology adoption is going to be happening in the wide area of any businesses, any domains, every domain it is going to be happening in the near future. So when you have identified that there are two keywords which are there, that as the HR best practices. So what all you have to do is you have to start searching for the documents or searching for the research papers on HR best practices, right? So HR best practices, you can go to the Google Scholar, or you can, if you have a Scopus database, if you have any other database for the loop of papers, you can just search for this particular topic, which is saying that, which is saying that it is going to be the HR best practices, right? So you can go for a Google search, you can go for the search for the different databases. There are different databases which are available. I am sure that otherwise you can go for the database as scholar.google.com and search for the HR best practices. So when you, okay, I just show you how to start with. If I share my screen and if I take to the Google, right. So I think my screen is visible. Google is, I just write as scholar, SCHOLAR, scholar.google.com, right? So if I go for scholar.google.com, the first link is scholar.google.com, which has the different, if I go for HR best practices, right? When I search for the HR best practices, you can see that there are, the PDF document is available for the best practices in human, why the HR is not evidence-based HR practices and performance-based HR system in Korea, HR system, right? So you can see that there are 40, like I think 4,20,000 something results are available. Right. So if you can go for the 10 to 15 papers, so what you can do is you just download those papers on HR practices. Then you can have the HR practices and IT adoption or technology adoption. So there are different two keywords. One, I have taken all the papers for the HR best practices, maybe 15, 20 papers of HR best practices. Then I can take the another keywords, that is technology adoption. So I take the technology adoption and HR best practices. So there it is talking about the green policy and practices. It is talking about the best fit. It is talking about the adoption of the involvement of this thing. It may talk about the technology adoption in the different ways. There are the technology where not only the IT technology, but they are also talking about the adoption. If you want a technology word should be there, you can have it in quotes. Then you want primarily for the technology adoption in the paper. And if you search for this, you have the technology adoption word, which is the mandatorily coming in the paper, right? So if you want a best practices, maybe the best practices or not, and if you want a technology adoption to be there. If you want both has to be mandatorily to be there, then you can have with quotes, right? So it is how you can have the different searches, like 26,300 papers which are there, which is on the basis of where it has a technology adoption and the HR practices. So it is talking about the human machine interaction. It is talking about the technology adoption and HRM practices, right? So you can see that technology adoption is mandatorily will be there in all the papers, and you have the list of papers which is available. What you can do is you can download these papers, right? You can download these papers with the different resources which you have in your organization. You can download, you can start reading these papers. Right. So when you start reading these papers, you will find out that there are some of the papers which you find it interesting, and some of the papers you do not find it very interesting. Right. So that maybe can be a burden to you to finish that paper. So if there is like say 10-15 pages of paper, some of the paper you find it interesting because that is going to be your interest of paper, where you are enjoying reading the paper. And in some of the paper, you find it little technical, little things which is not of your choice or your taste. So what you can do is you can select those papers which you find interesting. Like say if you download 30 papers, like say if you have 30 papers in the 10-15 papers are from the HR best practices and 15 papers with technology in HR best practices. And out of 30 papers, there is, I am very much sure that there are 7-8 papers which are something which you feel interesting. There can be more than that also. So the papers which you find it more interesting and you enjoy reading it, focus on those papers. So when you are reading those papers, you find it that it talks about, when it is a technology adoption, it is talking about, maybe it is talking about AI, it is again talking about metaverse, it is talking about gamification, or it is talking about IoT. It is talking about the recruitment selection and recruitment and selection kind of thing, where you are focused on the HR practices. Some are talking about the green practices also, because that is again considered to be the best practices. And most of them are talking about how to increase the performance of the organization by using the technology. There are papers which are talking about the HRIS also, that so HR in information systems, which are efficient to use to increase the performance of the HR. So you have 7 to 8 papers selected, and now what you can do is you can see that how what are the different spectrum that this 7, 8 or maybe 15 papers are talking about. Right now, you get a different direction altogether when you are doing this practice by your own. If it is imposed by your guide or your mentor related to the search of the topic, then you may be forcefully doing it. But if you are selecting the topic, if you are doing this practice by your own, then it seems to be that you are enjoying the research work, because the hard work which has to be done for your research, that you have to do it, right? Only the direction can be given by the supervisor. Only the supervisor can give you the direction, whether you are doing it right or wrong, whether you have taken it properly or not. So anything that you do is the new work. How it is going to be the new work? When you are reading 7 to 8 papers, and when you are going through the paper, you are basically, what you are doing, you are jotting down the points, and the points which you are making for your next paper for the preparation or next proposal for your preparation is not from the one paper, it is from the many papers. Right. So if somebody is talking about X, somebody is talking about Y, now you are talking about Z, because you have already read X and Y, and then you had framed with Y. So there is no shortcut, there is no hurry in while you are defining your research topic, or while you are selecting a paper. But this is something where if you have taken a proper steps for doing it, you can get more than 5-6 papers from a single set of research. So if, like, say, supposedly you have done, if you have read 30 papers and you had identified 7 to 8 papers, which is of your choice, now what you have to do is, based on whatever you have, the dimension which you have selected for your paper, now searching more articles on that, identify the keywords. I have identified that the keyword may be best practices, can be the green human resources, it can be the sustainable HR practices, it can be right. So it can be the performances from the selection and HR. So that can be considered to be the employability, maybe retention, right? So there can be n number of things where the papers are talking about. Now what you have to search now your search has to be little specific, and you can be focused on your area of interest where this 7-8 papers are talking about. Right now you have to do more research on those topics which you want to take your research on, right? So if you have identified 7 to 8 papers, now based on each and every paper, take down your notes and try to search for more paper in the field of green research, green HR practices, in the research of sustainable HR practices. So when you talk about the green research, when you talk about green HR practices, when you talk about sustainable HR practices, when you talk about performance evaluation, when you talk about retention, right? So this is something which is giving you the different dimensions to your research, and you can combine, you can go about the HR, green HR research with performance evaluation, with retention, etc., and with efficiency of work, and you can have a separate research paper out of it. The second research, you can have the sustainable HR, which is altogether different dimension, and you can have. And the third paper, you can again look for the IT adoption in it, right? So how the IT can help us to get the green HR practices, how the sustainable HR can helpful for adoption of the HR green for the sustainable HR practices, which are considered to be the best practices, right? So in this way, all you can do is you can have a different combination, and you can look for the certain 5-6 paper or maybe 10-15 papers, and try to start writing on the research papers, try to identify the parameters, try to do the identification of the parameters, and try to explore much on that particular research, and then go about. It's said to be like, if you are selecting your research topic, then you automatically, that is going to help you to work more, and you get, because you are involved into the research topic, your own selection of the research topic, then it cannot be copied, it is automatically going to become under the research ethics, because the topic and the idea is of your, it is not anybody else, right? So this is how you can start about selecting your research. It may take time, because when you are in the first 30 research paper, when you are studying, when you are reading the first research paper, it will take 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days. If it will take a long, because that was your first research paper, and then gradually when you are reading a research paper, that will be very efficiently you can read the research paper, and at the time when you are reading it, maybe the 20th or maybe the 50th research paper, you find that that this is the key important area of my research, which I have to include, in my research or my work. Right, so your eyes automatically see those keywords which you are looking for. This is how you can select the topic, and then you can write. So what are the different stages of the research? The first is the idea or the topic selection that we had already discussed. Now the second is, what will be the second step? Anything about anyone who want to share about the second step for the research, maybe the research which you are going to do, what will be the second step for following for the research? I think somebody has says about the literature review, right? So when you are talking about the literature review, you have already read like 15, 20 papers, maybe 50 papers. Now you can beautifully categorize your research into the different dimensions. You can create a table, you can create an Excel file maybe, and you can have the certain information and that of that particular research paper. What is the year of publication? What is the title? Who are the author? And what is the main parameters which are being discussed? What methodology which one has used? What are the outcome of that particular research paper? Right. So you are selected 7 or 8 research paper which has been followed to the other research papers which you have selected, and you can create an Excel sheet which will be talking about all the detailed research paper. Believe me, if you have done that exercise with like say maybe with 100 research paper, you can take out like more than 5-6 good research paper out of it. Because if you want to go for the green HR practices and the retention or maybe the performance evaluation, what all you have to do is you have to just take out those research paper and create a literature review. Right? So you need not have to do the same practice again and again. Once you have done, you are automatically identified the things which you want to go for your research, and then you can start your research writing or your literature review based on that which you have already, where you are 50% have work which you have already done. Right. So this is how you can create a literature review. If you see that there are many papers which have a literature review in a paragraph format, there are tables which are already there in the research review. You can see that there are proper headings also there. When you talk about the papers of like say the best practices, HR best practices, you can have 15-20 papers of HR best practices. If you want to go for the sustainable like best practices, you can identify one best practices and then you can have the 2-3 papers of that best practices. So in the same way, you can have the proper headings, subheadings, and then try to incorporate in that particular research paper. You have the outcome in your Excel sheet, you have what that paper has done, what is the methodology that they have used. So your literature review has already been created when you are doing the first step, that is reading out the research paper. Right. So now next is when you have written the literature review, now it is very easy for you to create the introduction. Right. Someone go for the introduction and maybe some form maybe look forward for the methodology. Right. So because you have already done your research paper, you have seen that what kind of methodology one is using. Right. It can be the exploratory analysis, then you can have identification of the factors you can give. If there is a certain link of the factors that can be identified, or if there are some model or some framework that you want to create, you can create certain framework where you can have the link between the one variable into the another or one factor between the another to get the output as so there can be the output that can be your dependent and independent variables. You can identify certain variables which are considered to be the independent variables which are based on some of the dependent variables. Dependent variables can be it can be your performance, it can be the output where you are going to achieve by the involvement of the many variables that are called as the that are considered to be the independent variables, which are not dependent, but they are going to find out something which is considered to be the output of your study. So first of all, you can start with those who are doing writing it for the first time, then they can start with the exploratory paper, research paper, where it is talking about the factors identification, where it is talking about the parameters which you have identified, where you have a literature review, the intensive literature review, and where you can have. Now you can come to the introduction. Introduction is something where you can start writing the introduction. You can define the different terms. You can take the broader review. Like say, when you talk about the technology adoption in HR practices, and if you want to consider, like say, if you can start with a broader perspective, where you can start with maybe globally how the technology adoption is defined, or how the HR best practices are defined, then you can consider it to be for India, right? And then you can consider it for the HR best practices. What are the different HR best practices where you have came across? You can discuss some of the definition, and then you can go about. If you are talking about some industry, maybe the hospitality industry or the tourism industry, then you can discuss with that also as a global perspective, how what is the growth of that particular industry. If you are talking about the IT industry, then you have to talk about how globally the IT industry has a this thing. Then next is how it is affecting in India, how what are the importance of the IT as a global in the global economy, maybe. And then like, so you have to take the broader perspective, and then you have to come up with the specific introduction where you are talking about the technology adoption. What are the different technologies that are using nowadays? Then you are also talking about the best practices. HR, then HR department is somewhat very important. Then important in any organization. Then what is the role of HR department that you can talk about? And then finally, you can talk about something which is called as the best practices in HR department, right? So when we are talking about the HR department best practices, and then the technology adoption, and so your every paragraph has one relation to the another. Right. So when you are talking about starting with the global, then you're talking about, let's talk about the details in India also, right? So India is also one of the second largest country, or maybe something like that, right? So there has to be some connectivity line between the one paragraph into the one paragraph to the another. There should not be something, right? So it is somewhat of the story kind of thing where, because what you want somebody to take an interest on your research paper, so that one gets cited, do the citation also, right? So if you have done something for the society, or maybe for the company, maybe for the domain specific IT company, or maybe something, right? So what you want, what your research paper value for, like say when they are reading your research paper, or when you go to the HR department and say that you have written something on them, so how they can take the benefit out of it, right? So your research paper will be totally focused upon how benefit the society can get, how benefit the individuals can get, how benefit the organization can get, which where you have focused upon certain things, so that they can be benefited when you are writing about when you are writing about the details, when you are writing about how they can be benefited out of it. Then only your research papers have some motto for getting it published, or using it, so that automatically you get the citation, automatically you get your paper is referred by somebody, right? So this is how that has to be in the natural format, it has to be done. Right. So once you have written the complete paper, do proper review, do proper referencing. Right. So proper referencing, it means that if you are reading, like say 50 papers, then in that particular case, your all the papers has to be properly identified. Your papers has to be properly seen, properly. Have you read the paper? Once you have read the paper, if you are writing something in the introduction, then that can be taken care of. If you're writing something in this thing, so it has to be properly cited, right? Proper citation is very, very important, because if you have taken certain lines from that particular paper, then you have to acknowledge. That's why we are writing a citation, right? So if you have taken, so citation is again, like say when you want to go for the technology adoption in XYZ, So when if a certain paper is talking about the IoT, or it is talking about something, so if you are writing about the IoT as a technology adoption, the IoT is suppose referred to 4 or 5 papers. So you can have because there are certain generalized thing which you know that it is there, but if it is somewhat, if it is specified by certain researchers, then you have to acknowledge that. So that is why we are doing the citations. So once you have done with the properly citation, once you have written with the paper, now next step is where it should be published, right? So it is very important where to get the publication of your paper. So when at the time when you are writing and when you are saying that there are certain papers which has a publisher which has a journal name, right? So if you have already done with like say 15-20 papers, and if you find that there are certain papers which are from the peer review, which are certain papers which are from the good journal where it is going to be considered to be the scopus or considered to be the peer review. It is according to your college norms, it is according to your university norms, where you can get the paper publication done. If there is no hard and fast about the scopus, then in that case you can see that what are the papers which you have read is under which particular journal. Because you have already know that what are the steps that are followed, you have already read that paper, which particular journal it is, which particular publisher it is, right? You can go there and you can submit the paper. That can be one way where you can identify the journal, because if supposingly the XYZ journal which is there and you have already identified, or if you have already read the paper, 4-5 papers from that particular journal, it is very easy for you to keep a track of how to submit a paper and how to consider that in publication, and that can be the one way that you can do it. The second way is if there is a ABDC list which is there is a scopus which is there. If you are little considered about my paper has to be in the scopus or my paper has to be in the UGC care list, right? To get into that, the one of the easiest way to get the paper publication done is from the conferences. If the conference have the scopus index as a chapter or as a considered to be as a journal, as being associated with the journal, then that is going to be, if it is considered, that is one of the easy way, not actually easy, but that is considered to be a simple way to get the publication in the journal. Because if it is a conference that has a certain real publisher, because there, yes, Jyoti, I agree with you, because there are many publishers which has which are there in nowadays, which says that they were there in the list for like 2019 or so, but they were not in the list. So you have to be very careful about. Don't encourage for paid journal, because the paid journal are normally considered normal in this particular list, which were there in the scopus nowadays, but they might not be in the scopus in next maybe 1 year, or maybe they are previously there and they were not now. So you have to be very careful about, there should be no fake journals, that because you have done a very hard work for your research paper. So you have to be very careful about, because getting the publication done is your paper, the paper which you have written is that is, you cannot submit it somewhere else, because that is again considered to be in the plagiarism. Because maybe it is self-plagiarism, but that is considered to be a plagiarism. Then you have to do the same practice again. You have to reframe each and every sentence, and then you can consider it for some different publication. Right. So it is very hard step when you are considering to be taking a decision, because that is your own paper which you have written, and then you have to consider it where it is going to be published. One is, as I have discussed, that is the one way is you can consider that you can go for the publication through the conference, then that is one of the easy way where you, because the journal is authentic and there is a certain fixed line. So when you say that there is a fixed line, means that if the conference is in say maybe in September or maybe in December, so you can submit the paper in December, that is a fixed line, and then you will be getting a review of that, maybe the 2-3 reviews before that, and then you will be getting the response before the conference. You can present in the conference, and you will be getting the many like say the comments on your research which you have already done, maybe that where you can improve upon your research paper and finally submit it to the journal which is being associated with. So if you get because there are session chairs which are the session judges which are there, and which can, because while going through your presentation, they have a broad spectrum of the expert area or the subject expert they were. So they can give a different dimension to your research, because once you are writing a research paper, you are focused on any certain kind of thing, but you have not touched upon certain things which is actually required and which is important for give you a different dimension, uplifting your paper to the different dimension altogether. So do attend the research conferences and take the positive inputs which are given by the session chairs or the reviewer committee, and try to incorporate that in the research paper and then try to submit it. So if, as I told you, that it is going to be the bounded with the certain this thing, the experts maybe guide you for that particular research paper, or they maybe guide you not that particular research paper, that altogether your research study. So they may guide you like you should consider this also in your research study. You will be doing this also, right? So they will give you overall idea about how to proceed with the research. So we have talked about where you are going to publish. There is a Scopus list also. You can search for the list, Scopus list, you can search for your title or your this thing. Download 2-3 papers there are for that particular journal. See that how they have written that paper. Right. So once you have download their paper, right, of your area, like say if your area is the same, you can see that what papers they have already published in that particular journal. You can download that paper and see the broader headings of that particular paper. Then that will be an easy step for you to go about it. Like say when you talk about, because every journal has a certain set of rules to be considered, where they called it as a quality return, or say they have a certain fixed set of consider. So if there is an editor which is accepting the article, or there is a reviewer committee which is accepting the article, so they certain if the layout and the topic subtopics is going to be according to their journal, then they will be considering and they will be moving ahead of your paper. Because normally what has happened, that if you have submitted the paper, they will send you back that you don't have the cover page, you are not according to the format, you read our paper and then send back. Right. So you have to be very particular about when you are writing the paper, you have to see that what are the research papers that they have submitted and they have in past. 1 or 2 research paper you can download, you can see that what is the pattern of their research. If you already have their research pattern, then that is very easy for you to format your paper according to those certain headings, because you have already done your majority of work. Only thing is you have to just format your paper according to their format, right, with the proper headings and proper this thing. So if you have already done the things properly according to you, then it won't take much time to consider or to go about in doing the formatting according to their this thing. So once you have written a paper, now the next step is it has to be published. Once it is published, then your paper has to be cited. There are always you have to follow the research ethics, because research ethics is something which you get, which you can identify. You get the identification by your own. If you if you are like, say, if you have written some paper, then you can already then you can always forward that research paper to your students and say that you can go through this paper, use this paper and cite this paper, right? So that is a best practices, because that is a ethical practices, because your paper has been read to too many of the authors, and they are actually reading it and incorporating it in your research, right? So in this way you can follow the ethical practices for writing and for going about your paper. So okay, I have prepared a small presentation related to the topic, that is right. So I think broadly we have discussed about something which is considered to be the ethical practices, because it is, again, this topic is considering some or the other way where you have to, what all you have to consider in your research as an ethical practices and what is not in there. When we say that the selective reporting, because these are the certain things, because when we talk about the broader topic about the research ethics, the first thing that comes that somebody says that plagiarism, that was the first input, because we thought that the plagiarism is the only ethical practices which is considered. But not only that, but there are other views also. When somebody has talked about the new idea, somebody has talked about the code of conduct, right? So there are certain things which are again important when we talk about the research best practices. So when you talk about the selective reporting is something where when we talk about the n number of things, when I talk about, maybe I have collected the data which has the different 7, 8 dimensions, and in my report or in my PhD thesis, I am talking about only the three, selecting only the three things which are considered because of the biasness. What is that biasness all about? Because I want it to be the significant result. I do not want to be in the insignificant results. So when we talk about only the selective reporting, we talk about only the significant results. It can be a personal bias, it can be the biasness which we are doing with our data. We are not reflecting, we are not representing the whole data to the viewers. We are not publishing the whole data, but we are very selective to certain things where we find it significant, right? So it normally happens when we talk about the significant, when we talk about the data and we have the results, we are very much worried about the results because the results are coming out to be insignificant. So it seems to be that the results which you are talking about is the significant. You should always disclose about the insignificant result. If you say that gender, according to the gender, it is significant, then according to the age group, according to the qualification, it is not significant, then that also has to be disclosed with at your reporting. That has to be again a reporting. If you say that the painkiller, like say, these are the consequences for, these are the causes if somebody has used the painkiller, and what are the negative effects of it, that is, it has really getting a relief, that can be one of the significant results. But what are the drawbacks of taking the painkiller? That are the, what are the insignificant, or what are the drawbacks? That also has to be reported, right? So this is how it is considered to be the most of the clinical reports. You have the both the dimension, whether it's for the significant and for the not significant. But most of the researchers which we do, or most of the papers which we write, we only talk about the significant. We don't talk about the insignificant. So it seems to be that you should be also focused on The insignificant, that is considered to be the one of the best practices to consider for all the significant results also and all the insignificant results also. In most of the time, we find that it is find that there is a misrepresentation of the data. Misrepresentation of the data means, like say, if there is something which is not significant, we are not writing it as an insignificant, but we manipulate the data, we manipulate the interpretation accordingly so that it can be considered, it can be a representation as being misrepresentation of the data, so that you can consider or you can manipulate by writing or presentation according to your data, according to your results, right? So this has happened in considering the selective reporting and the misrepresentation of the data. So it is according to the guidelines, according to the code of conduct, it seems to be that you have to display all the, you cannot be selective only for the reporting, you have to get the significant and insignificant results, and your representation has to be properly for all the significant and the insignificant results. So these are the some of the research which has been involved as the principles of ethical principles of research. That is your responsibility, honesty, right? So these are some of the points which we have considered while I have written that what are the ethical practices. Integrity, competence, right? Competence, that's why I said that go about your research, because that is your research, that is not your mentor research or your supervisor research. Select the topic according to your choice, take the topic forward according to your interest, do the justice with what the topic you have select, take the topic with dignity, whatever it is. Confidentiality has to be maintained, because many times it has happened that once you have taken the research, it will disclose with the others of other researchers, you discuss your work with other researchers, and because there are things which are common, there are literature which is commonly available to all. So if you have done something unique, then you have to be have a confidentiality in your research topic, maybe in the direction of your research, so that it cannot be used by somebody else. Because if that is, if you discuss everything with your colleagues in especially in case of PhD, in PhD researcher, if you are a PhD scholar and if you are discussing with each and everything with your colleague, and your colleague may take your topic forward, right? So it is going to be the waste of time, either maybe you and your colleague, right? So if one has copied your topic, so you both have to work or differently. So that seems to be, if you are taking out the topic, don't discuss each and everything which you have studied. There should be some privacy, some confidentiality has to be there. Right. So honesty, responsibility towards the research, because as I have already discussed that you have to give back to the society, maybe giving back to the domain specific that you are working. If you're working in the for the IT industry, if you're working for the tourism industry, you discuss with them. You can always, when you have written a research paper, discuss with them that how it is going to help them. That is how we write a case study, because the case study is something which is the problems of the industry and taken to the student, discuss with the student, and then it can be considered to back to the, based on the ideas, based on anything that can be given back to the company. In the same way, the research can also be, because there is a gap between the researcher and the companies, because we are doing so much of research for taking different industry into place, and how we are giving back to the industry is again very, very important. So you have to discuss, maybe you can walk into, you can take out the time, you can take the appointment, you can discuss with, I am doing the research in the area of IT, you are the best IT company, or maybe we can discuss something on the details, something like that can be discussed and can be followed. So that is how you can go about when you are doing the research, so that it can be, you know that how it is going to be used. If you have done the research and which is known to everyone and that is in practice for last like say 4-5 years, then your research is of no relevance, because you have to do something new in the research which can be taken in the industry as a positive note, and they have to implement it, right? So because if you are doing a research for something, then take care of the research which you are doing for whom, and that can be useful for others. So there is a small exercise for you. What do you think that makes the good researchers? So what you have to do is you have to log in at mentimeter.com. So I just write in the chat box where you have to go to the mentimeter.com, and there is a question which is going to be published. That is, what do you think that what makes you the good researchers? We have discussed many more points, and what I want you to discuss, that I want to you to do is go to the mentimeter.com. There is one question which is going to be published, and you have to, must be free and biased. Yes, you have to write it in mentimeter.com. You have to go to this particular website, mentimeter.com. You have to click on that. It is asking for the three options which are there, right? You have to write all the three options, and let us see that what are those options which are discussed above, which you find is going to be the important points. So I am just waiting for your results to come in. So have you gone to mentimeter.com? You just write the three responses. Are you able to write the responses? Are you able to see the screen? Yes, okay, great. So I just share the screen and show you how, what are the results that, so I have not received any of the responses yet. You have to write your three responses. Are you able to submit your responses? Yes, okay. You have to use the code as 44756176. Okay, I forget to tell you the code. I write it on the chat box. That is, it is asking for your code, for the code, right? It is 44756176. Double 44756176 is the code. Write the code. Enter the code 44756176. So somebody has written as honesty, trust, and integrity. I got 4 answers, right? Carry on, right? You can have other options as well. It is not only honesty, integrity, and trust, but you could look for some other options as well. So I've received only, okay, great. So there is a patience, there is unbiasedness, there is hard work, there is integrity is something which is very, very important. 7 answers I have received. Where are others? There are 200 something. Yes, so hard work, trust, patience, unbiasedness. 10 answers. Others can also reply. Neha, you can write in the mentimeter.com because where we can see all the responses. So I think you are able to see the screen. Are you able to see the screen? Okay. I just show you. Okay, this is the screen. Based on your responses, you can see that the word cloud is, you can see the word cloud, how it is giving the responses, how you can, your responses. Somebody has written a problem solver, hard work, honesty, patience, open-minded, right? Social, hard work, honesty. Honesty has taken a lead above integrity, right? Otherwise, earlier it was integrity. Hard work is again has come up with the 2 words. So there are 2 different words because there is a hard work with just space and not. Passion, problem solver, open-minded, right? So I got 28 responses. What about other 200 participants? We got 34 respondents with, right, 37 respondents. You can see that how attentive is my participants, right? So they have hard work, patience, and which is coming out to be more adjectives as well, right? See, 42 respondents. Right. So we got the overall idea about, so this is how one can use this idea where when you are considering to be, let's see what we get the response from the from the study, how they can take it forward. So out of the respondents, so these are what very, very important. All the important points which has been captured by you is important, which you have considered for the study. That is all the other objectives, all the other things which are important, considering to be the honesty, then the curiosity, collaboration is again an important thing. So if you want to go about the very important, most important, and very important according to you, so you can always divide it into certain categories, because I think there is a short of time. So there is again, I have prepared a slide where you can have considered it to be the more important, very important, and not very important. I think most of the things which we have covered as this thing, the only thing which is left is the collaborative. So how the collaborative is important? The collaborative is something which is very, very important these days, where you can collaborate, where the 2 and 3 people can collaborate and write the research paper. And the collaboration is according to the skill set, according to the strength of one and the another, that can be compensated with another. Like say, if there are 3 or 4 people can do the collaboration, because once you are doing the PhD, it is very easy to publish the paper. But again, if you have already done the PhD and all the papers are published through the study, through your PhD study, then it will be difficult for you to write as a scratch, and it will take a lot of time. So what one can do, if the faculty having 10-15 years of experience, so they can start collaborating the work. You can identify the same area of your research with the other faculty members, maybe in the same college, maybe in the different college, and try to do some collaboration. There can be a multi-dimension, there can be a multi-sector this thing also, where you can have multidisciplinary collaboration as well. So if somebody can do the IB international business concept of the HR, and somebody can help you in sustainable concept of HR, somebody can help you in technological aspects of HR, then you all three can 3-4 people can collaborate and then write a paper. So with less effort, you are able to do it. That can be one of the, so according to the Pennock and Miller, they have done the measurement and they are able to identify that this is the rates where the honesty and the curiosity is considered to be the one. Then there is a observant and attentiveness. What is going in going to be in the next 5 years or the 3 years, right? So you have to be attentive on what is the change which is coming out to be in, like say, if there is a metaverse which has come, if there is a gamification which has come, you have start writing it. Like Chat GPT is one of the area which has been coming these days. So you have to be attentive in taking that particular technology and try to see that how it is going to help you to incorporate in your area and try to take it forward. So who are going to be the trusted profession? According to the study, the teachers are considered to be the third at the third position for as being the trustworthy. Right. So trustworthy as the teachers, we are considered to be the researchers, and the teachers are the most trustworthy. So scientists, doctors are again at the top, which are the trustworthy. So most of the teachers are doing their research ethically, and they are considered to be the trusted profession, and they are in the trusted profession. So we are should feel happy that we are in one of the trusted profession. Selective, as we have discussed, that there are certain subset of the results which are omitting from the data and the complete outcome. So it happens many times when we are doing the research, we want to discuss only the positive things, only the significant things, and we completely ignore the insignificant things which are there. Similarly, it can be the outcome also. It can be, you can cite only those articles which has a positive influence, which has a significant results. We are not talking about which has the insignificant result, we cannot cite those which has the insignificant results. So detect the selective biasing is again the large amount of data. There can be multiple, you can neglectly provide that what is the result which is captured. Your is specific based on the either in the conclusion or say, so as we have discussed that there are multiple dimensions. You talk about the data where it talks about the gender and the significance. You are not talking about the data which has other significant results. Then there is extremely harmful. We normally avoid those in the reporting bias. We don't discuss about those which are harmful for and we exclude from the results. We don't discuss about that in the results. But the implication of the clinical practices is there can be a hazardous in when we are not talking about something which are not significant and which can be ignored at the time of the treatment. So what are the problems with the selective? If you can see that there is how this figure can be, if you have a negative trial, if you have a positive trial and spin. So if your first results is considered to be like you have a negative and a positive, what we normally do is positive, there is no change in the positive, but for the negative, we try to consider it's in from the study of biasness, we when we are talking about the second, that is the outcome reporting, at the time of reporting, we ignore or we remove some of the negative points or negative trials. We considered only few trials which are negative and also try to consider it as or try to represent it as a positive. So you can see that there are more green lines because that is again represented as a positive. And the spin is something where what we can do is we can represent in that way that it can be considered as a positive. So spin is you bold or you represent it in that way that it can be considered as a positive. There can be a mild spin, somewhat considered to be a spin which is considered or which is converted into a positive, some which is considered to be a mild spin as for the citation basis, or like if you can see the citation bias is only one point which is being considered. And we normally, this is how we present our data, and our data is being presented in most of the things are positive, and there are some representation which you have converted into a positive. Representation is as they are positive, and all the positives that you are making a bigger circle so that you are focusing only on the positive. You are not focusing on somewhat which is negative. So this is how you we are reporting, we are doing our things. Report biasness and implication, there can be a publication bias because negatively results are not published. Negative outcomes are distorted or to improve the overall findings. Spin communicates the result in such a way that reflects the positive, and biasness is something which are positive results more are cited. What are the examples of selective? Selective is like say when you have to select club members, the college is highly used for the admission purposes. We are focusing on those who are interested in taking the admission process. We are not considering those who are not, those category who has not taken the admission for choosing the or choosing the member, because you want all to be in the category of the significant results. So there are different biasness, which I think we have discussed that at the time of methodology, at the time of procedure which you follow, we are considering some biasness at the time of selecting. These are the publication biasness. Again, you can be considered or can be taken care of while you are doing the research paper. Under-report data, there are many selective reports which are under-report, which are not being discussed, outcome-based, which are not considered to be giving you the clear picture, and data collected, which demonstrate the full understanding of the subject. Only that subset which is significant to the results are discussed. You should, as a researcher, you should be transparent in measuring all the data, considering all the data. Misrepresentation of the data, which is where the relevant facts are suppressed, which are not presented properly as you're doing the other research, the data phishing or the data dredging, which is something which is the misuse of the data analysis. The patterns are presented statistically significant, thus dramatically they are increasing and understanding the risk as a false positive. So normally what we are doing, we are not considering that data in our research, which are considered to be not showing the significant. Now, manipulating the images, that is again a serious fraud. Normally, when you have to do something wrong with the images, you make it something blur or make some color changes or something, which is again not ethical practices to change the image. If you are using the image, that has to be in the proper focus, proper the guidelines or proper aspect ratio according to the publication guidelines you have to use. Changing, many times it happens that based on the results, you are changing the objectives, you are changing the hypothesis, you are not distinguished for your postdoc analysis, the failing to report the protocol deviation, right? So based on you have started with the research with something in the mind, but normally it happens that because the results are something else, you go back and change your hypothesis, which is not a good practice. You have to have the results, you have to display the results, which has to be, and you have to check whether you are wrong in collecting the data. What to avoid that unprocessed picture crop and the picture review of images in support of that. You cannot change the image that is there. What is the root cause of misrepresentation of the data? Because we are all into the like in the teaching profession. So there is a department publication requirement which is there. There is a requirement of promotion. You need a research paper. So that's why you have to do it little fast. You have to do something which is not ethical. So there is a competitive measure which is there. If your two colleagues had already presented a paper or already written a research paper, but you have not, so that is a pressure of competitive pressure is there. Then institutional, region, and national recognition by the institution which is there. There is a final remuneration which you can get from the institution, and do not feel that it is well equipped to publish the data, right? So you don't feel well to publish, so that's why you find out the different means how to get the things published. So you have to be careful about the social value while research. Like what all we have discussed is it has to be report back to the company, right? How you are going about that particular research, or what are the social value you are giving back to the society while doing that research. So you have to take care of that things while you are getting something new to be researcher. So this is my contact number and my email. So feel free to contact me. Now I can take the questions. If you have any questions, let's take a question for any questions which you have. Quickly take out the questions because, sir, Mukesh sir, I think I have already have 5-10 minutes with me. So any questions, anything which comes in your mind, which you want to ask me? I can write my mobile number in the in the group. Okay, no, ma'am.
Participants can raise their queries in the chat box, please.
How to select the topic for research, ma'am? That is again, Nidhi, I think Sunita. Sunita, I have discussed that how to select the research topic. You have to first go through, take the broader topic, try to, like it may be in HR or your marketing or something. Then try to identify the papers, read like 15 papers, 15, 20, or maybe 50 papers of that area, and then try to clear it out, like how to go about that particular research. UGC careless publication demand for fee and take time also. Is there any option? Because it is because if it is mandatory for, and there is a timeline for your research, or there is a timeline for your PhD, right, then in that case you are forced to go for some publication which demands a fee. But try to, because there is a 1 year time which most of the publication will take, most of the good publication will take. So it is good if you can have, like, say, if you're because normally what happens, we go for a very last moment. So if you want a publication in, say, next year or next to next year, in that case, you can write the paper and submit the paper right now, right? So if you have, if you're writing a paper right now, that is going to be reflect maybe next year or maybe next to next year. And you can also go for some conference paper, because for this year you are not having too much of research. So at that point of time, you can have some publication by doing conferences. So conferences is again, either it can be tied up with some of the journals, so that is going to help you. I think Karan has a certain query. Karan, you want to ask something? I think Prikshit, thank you so much. How much time to be spent on the first research paper? It will take not more than 1 month, but you have to be dedicated. It should not be like that you have done something today and then, because every day if you are doing something, then you can take it forward. If you are doing it for like say Monday, and then if you are again reading it to next Monday, then you have forget everything which you have studied. So the best thing is do it regularly. Like if you are a full-time scholar, then try to spend like say 8 to 9 hours in reading the paper, mark the paper, right? If you find it difficulty in online reading, then you can take the printout, you can mark something like say, as we have discussed, what methodology you have used, what now how many number of respondents are there, right, and what is the conclusion, what are the factors which are so if you have written, if you have all the 5-10 papers with you, then it is easy for you to discuss with the how to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism can be avoided if normally what happened is we copy and paste the selected portion from one research paper. So if you have done that, then it is very difficult to avoid the plagiarism. So what you can do is you can read out the things from the paragraph. Like say, if you read the first paragraph, if you read 2 paragraph, and try to write in your own words in your research paper, right? Because many times it happens, if you have done a copy and paste from one research paper and you try to manipulate that in by the rephrasing, it will takes a lot of time. So to avoid that, what you can do is either you can so many times it happens, what I can do is I can look for some PPT slides of maybe some research paper or the presentation slides of some material. So when you look for the presentation slides of that particular presenter or that particular research paper, it cannot be copied from this, because that are your own views to take it forward. So this is how, Madhvi, you can avoid the plagiarism, right? Because reworking on the plagiarism, if plagiarism has come out to be 60%, and then when you are reworking it, it cannot be more than less than 9%, because again and again you have to rework on the same paper. Is any guidelines for? Yes, there are certain papers you can look for, maybe Google Scholar. You can go for a Google Scholar and go for. There are many publishers also. There are many journals also which go for the survey paper or which go for the elementary paper. So it is more. It is again. When you are looking for your research paper, you can just see that how it is going about it, what kind of paper it is accepting. So if you have downloaded two papers, so you can see, you can able to find out that whether they are taking a survey paper or they are taking a exploratory paper. So accordingly, you can work on that. How to find out the journal the best? The journal can be, I think there are many sessions on the journal also. There are many clone journals available. You have to be very careful about when you get a certain journal that it is in Scopus, just check once again, like if it is written in the Scopus, but if you again have to check in the Scopus. If you get some information that it is in UGC care, just to verify, check on the UGC site. Right, so you have to do the check again while submitting the paper, because there may be the cases where earlier it was there, but it was not there at the time when you are submitting. The journal reflects more exposure. The journal that reflects more, yes, the journal that reflects more exposure, you can see the publication frequency of that particular journal, if it is having, and how prompt they are. If they have the issue, like say this is mine, if they have their last issue of March and it is a monthly journal, means they are 2 months late. So you have to be very prompt about which particular journal is very promptive in publication. So for that particular journal, you can you can send the research paper without any thought, because if you are comparing two journals for the publication, you can always go for the journal which has many issues. That can be number one, and how prompt they are. If certain journal which has the old issue pending of like say 2022, which is pending of December, so they are late by 6 months. So like if you have submitted the paper, then it is again taking a lot of time. Survey and literature review paper, both are same. I think survey paper, survey paper is something where the survey is conducted. Is it that, Rajendra? Because literature review paper is something where you can prepare some model, and it is a review of literature, the most of the review of literature where you have not done any analysis. Number of papers are again limited to, okay. The number of papers are limited in research paper, that are again, like say, probably there are 300 to 500 words, that is a standard. So if you have prepared, if they are asking for 3,000 to 5,000 words. So your paper should have this range should be there, and 10 to 12 pages. Like, so if you are having something like this, then you can search for some journal and try to. So first you prepare a paper, that can be one way. Second way is you can look for the journal and see the guidelines of the paper, see the guidelines. Accordingly, you have to bold your paper and then submit. To maintain the recording of the research papers, do you have to maintain the record of the research? That is the recording for, Anu, you are asking about the recording of your research paper which you have published. Yes, you have to maintain an Excel sheet where you have to find out the details like which particular paper you have submitted, when you have submitted, to whom you have submitted, and don't submit the same paper to the two different journals, because what happened, that is unethical practices and unethical practice, and that is the time waste of both the editors. So you have to be very careful about, if you want another paper to be submit, you can you can submit the paper any different style. That is again, Neha, that is again based on journal to journal. So you have to take care of your paper where you are submitting. Most of the time it is common, like say the title is 14 size and the content is 12 size. Abstract is, sometimes it is abstract is 10 size or something. So there are something which are common and that can be considered. Can I ask you to type? I am asking while choosing. Ma'am, I am asking while choosing the topic of the research. Yeah, Anu, the topic of the research is there should be something broad topic in your mind, right? Like we have discussed about the IT adoption and the HR practices, right? So that can be the broad topic. Then you can download the 30 articles from that broader topic, and then read those 30 articles and try to find out where your interest lies upon. If you can select like say 7 to 8 papers which are according to your choice, or where you find it more interesting, where you are not finding it boring or not able to understand those 7 8 papers, then take forward those 7 8 papers and try to identify the topic of your research. Yes, yes, sure. Neha, you can connect me. I will help you out in your research topic. Or maybe guide you in how to take about your research.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for the nice presentation and interactive session.